Today on CityCast Houston, it's been an exhausting week for the entire city. So I'm calling on executive producer Laura Isensee and Hey Houston newsletter editor Brooke Lewis for a team chat so we can decompress and recap what we went through, from the wildest moments to tips for coping and what's next in the recovery from Hurricane Beryl. It's Thursday, July 11th. I'm Rahil Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Brooke. Hey, Laura. How are y'all?
Well, I'm not going to lie. It's been a few tough days, but we're holding it together. That's all I can say.
Yes, just taking it one day at a time.
So this has just been a wild week, and there's no other way to put it. So I'm just going to start, if that's okay. I was a little arrogant going into this hurricane. Like, it's been since Hurricane Harvey, right? Since we've gone through a hurricane where there was a full impact. And I was like, we'll be fine. I told my wife, no, we'll be good. We don't need to charge anything because the batteries are going to be fine. Power's not going to go out. We don't need to go buy food. There's other people already panicking. We're good. And sure enough, we got caught and it happened, right? And it was stressful. It was exhausting. And we were the lucky few where we did get power back relatively quick. And I know, Laura, you're still without power as we're recording this right now. I just know I just started and went on this like almost a rant about me being dumb and not preparing, which I've done every single time. I always over prepare, but because of us not sustaining that much damage during the derecho, I was like, oh, we'll be fine. No big deal. If we can sustain that kind of wind damage, we'll be fine. Power's not going out, and here we are.
You know, what you're saying in some ways makes total sense, because we talked earlier this week with the Houston Chronicle meteorologist, Justin Ballard, and he was saying how some of us have kind of lost our muscle memory with storms. My family, we were actually pretty impacted by the derecho in May. And so this time around, I was like, no, we got to be prepared, because we were without power for 6 days with that storm. We did a last minute hurricane run to get some extra food, lots of water. And then this is probably my wildest or most memorable moment of Beryl so far. I hope nothing tops it. But my mother-in-law, when she saw it was getting closer and closer, she reached out to us, and knowing we have small kids, she said, look, I have this old generator. It's left over from Hurricane Ike. You know, it's been sitting in storage. You can come and get it. I mean, we're talking, this generator is 16 years old. It's old enough to drive. And we didn't even know if the thing would work, but we hustled. We got some family to help lug it over to our house, literally as the storm was approaching the coast on Sunday evening. And then, I won't go through all the details, but it was a hustle to get the gasoline and to try and get it working. And somehow we got it working. So that's the only way we've been able to make it without power so far. And it's minimal. You know, it's helping us power up our fridge and some devices. But man, having a fan while it's over 90 degrees outside, I guess that's just what I would say. I feel like the derecho, we were not prepared. And that storm was totally different because it just came out of nowhere. And this one, I just felt like we don't know what's going to happen. We need to be prepared. And now here we are, waiting for CenterPoint, waiting for news. We don't know when the power is going to come back.
How was your experience, Brooke?
Yeah, I think like Rahil, I also went into this past weekend just feeling calm. Like, we're coming off of 4th of July. I'm like, July is one of my favorite months of the year. And I was just not really thinking that much about the hurricane. I saw the news. I saw that it could take a turn towards Houston, but it wasn't until I went to a game night on Friday where everyone was rumbling about that it started to become real, because everyone started talking about, are you prepared for Hurricane Beryl? Have you gone to the grocery store? And at that point, I didn't even realize that it had taken a right turn towards Houston. And so that night I looked at my trustworthy Space City weather, and it said that, yep, that was happening, and I started preparing. But I think what was so interesting about this storm is that it reminded me so much of Hurricane Ike. So when Hurricane Ike hit, I was in high school. I was probably a junior in high school, 16 or 17 years old, and still live with my parents back then. And I did not expect to end up riding out Hurricane Beryl with my parents again so many years later, but that's what happened because I live in Montrose, and during the derecho, I also lost power. I was out of town actually that weekend, so I did not have to ride out the no air conditioning, but we didn't have power for days. So I just assumed that I probably would lose power. My parents live in Katy, and usually their power comes back on pretty quickly. So I just hustled on Sunday to get over here, brought my cat, all my stuff, and I just planned on camping out here for the next few days. And yep, I did lose power in Montrose. My power did come back on pretty quickly, but it was all unexpected and rang in my birthday during a hurricane.
It's a birthday you'll never forget. And I want to go and talk about a wild moment. There was a point there where CenterPoint, they have released a new map where you can track what's happening in terms of, are you online? Are they still assessing the damage? Are they working on the damage? So they did release this map. It's not the official one that they've been working on, and it's just make do right now. But before that, Houstonians were using the Whataburger app to track outages. It makes no sense. I have to laugh at this, that as a city, we're using the Whataburger app. And what's happening is, just let me explain if you don't know the story yet. The Whataburger app will light up every location as open or closed. And an orange location means that there's power at this location. That means they're operating. And a darker location just suggests that it's closed. So people are using that as a way to figure out if there's power in their area.
Like you said, you almost have to laugh, but it's also so surreal. And it also shows, I think, the gravity of the situation, that it does not seem like CenterPoint, as the main energy provider in this region, was really prepared. I'm hustling to get my family prepared. Brooke is taking care of herself. Where's CenterPoint getting prepared for a storm? I'm sure they did something, but, basic things like an outage map for residents to track outages and where it's going to be. It's so surreal and yet so concerning that Whataburger is more reliable than CenterPoint. I mean, come on.
It's a multi-billion-dollar company that had billions of dollars in profits last year, right? We have a lot of trees. Trees are going to topple, especially the older ones. We're also coming off a heat dome last year where a lot of infrastructure has been damaged by the heat. So why did you not prepare and have people and crews on standby? I understand other cities need these resources as well, as the hurricane was moving up the coast. But how about our other states that are to the east? Why not get people from there? You can hire additional resources. Why were you not prepared for that? All of Tuesday was spent just assessing damage, and they didn't have enough people to cut down trees that were on power lines or power lines that have fallen on trees. Either way, it is so frustrating, and you start thinking about the people impacted by this, right? Laura, you have 2 young kids. We're thinking about senior citizens in senior living homes who don't have power. It's heartbreaking. There needs to be an investigation into this, and CenterPoint needs to be held accountable.
I want to tag on to that. You saying you want an investigation. Well, so does Dan Patrick, who is filling in right now as acting governor. He called for a review as well this week, asking for a review of how prepared was CenterPoint? Were they following protocol? So I hope we get some answers from that.
I also reached out to Hey Houston readers in the newsletter to ask how their Hurricane Beryl experience was. And a reader actually reached out. She lives in a neighborhood bordered by Clay Road. And she said after the derecho in May, they saw 2 trees that were lying near soccer fields at the Bear Creek Pioneers Park. They called CenterPoint and reported that one of the trees had stressed one of the power lines near there. And they said that they were very concerned to see that 6 weeks later, on July 4th, that same tree was still resting on the power line. So that just shows, the accountability that we really need to hold for CenterPoint, because they still saw a tree lying from the derecho storm from weeks before. So that was really shocking to me.
Want to know one of my favorite sounds? Here it is. That's the sound I hear when I'm learning Spanish with Babbel. And if you want to learn a new language this year, I guarantee it'll be one of your favorite sounds too. I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, and I've been doing Babbel for a few weeks, and it's been so much fun. This week, I've been learning lots of food vocabulary and how to order in a restaurant. This is one of the things I love about Babbel, is that it's about learning the language so that you can use it. As Babbel says, it's designed by real people for real conversation. So it's all based on real life situations. And these restaurant lessons are awesome. When I went to Mexico City last year with my girlfriend, I was mute. I was a mute. But next time, I'm going to be ordering the sopes and las salsas picantes. Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold, plus all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Let's talk about tips for those people who are listening. And thank you so much for listening. And if you want to give these tips to people that you know that don't have power, how can we stay cool? How can we recover? Let's just talk about general recovery tips here.
I'll share my main tip, which is how I'm getting through this, which is basically leaning on my friends and family. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't have power as of right now. We have a small generator, but we have no power. We have no internet. And so to get through the day, to be able to produce this podcast, I've been leaning on my friends and family. Big shout out to my neighbors who do have power. Other friends have reached out to me saying, hey, do you need a place to go? You're welcome over here. I know some of us have wider networks than others, and some of listeners might be newer here, but I would just look for those connections. And it can be really vulnerable to say, hey, can you help me? Or, hey, can I come over? Sometimes we don't want to bother people, or we don't want to be an inconvenience or a burden. But I was looking, and there's actually research shows that people want to help. People want to say yes, and they don't see it as a burden. They don't see it as an inconvenience. So I would just urge people, there are cooling centers that are provided by the city. So those are definitely an option. But maybe you have a neighbor who has a fan you can sit in front of, or a work colleague. You can go and work from their apartment for a little bit. I think we just have to come together and support each other because really that's, at the end of the day, all we have.
I was not shy asking my best friend who lives near us. They had power on Monday. I don't know how they were out of power for like a few hours. It's like, hey, our power is back. You guys want to come over? I said, absolutely. And his wife cooked us a warm meal. It was just nice to get away after sitting in the heat all day. We did come back home later that night. I was like, I think the power's going to get back. Look, all these neighborhoods are getting power. And my kids had to sleep in that heat with no fans or anything. They're going to be tougher for it. My wife was like, okay, we can't do this anymore. Can we go to your brother's house now? And we did. I don't mind. Like, as you heard on the podcast, I will burden people. I don't care. And I will open up my door too. Like, come on over. We have power. We are the lucky few. So come on over and enjoy it. And it makes that experience a little bit better, right? And you can talk to somebody who's going through it. They get a break away from being stuck in their hot house. So yeah, reach out if you do have power. Offer it to your friends and family as well that you do have power. Come on over. Brooke?
Yes, definitely relying on friends and family has been key for me as well. And I think also what I love to see during these times is just how the local businesses always show out. And even though they're going through things, a lot of local businesses are open. We'll have those listed in the show notes, but really take advantage of some of these places that are open with free Wi-Fi and AC. The Houston Chronicle has a running list of coffee shops that are open. Eater Houston has had a list all week of restaurants that are open. And it's just resources that we really need during these times. Even if you can just grab a quick meal in AC, I think that can just feel like an escape, honestly, from just being without power. And so the local businesses for me, it's been something that I've really enjoyed seeing how they're coming through during the storm.
I'm so glad you brought up the local businesses, because the ones that fared okay in this, they are opening up their doors. Come by and support it. I was actually talking to Patrick Feges, who was our guest for our Best Barbecue episode a couple of months ago. And for the second time in 6 weeks, he had to throw away all of his inventory.
Oh, man.
And he's not the only business to do that. Like, just think about that. I was at Kroger this morning, and cheese, meat, everything was just gone, right? Because they have to throw it away for whatever reason. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. I saw one Kroger, I think it was on the east side earlier this week. They put out all this produce and said, hey, we can't use this. We can't sell it. But they opened it up and told people in the neighborhood, hey, if you want to come by and take any, just take it. And people took advantage of that. It's really tough. And I know CenterPoint is saying they're going to get people restored with power as soon as possible, but some folks, it's going to be prolonged. And so I just feel like this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint for a large number of people.
All right, one last thing. I tweeted this yesterday, and we even did this on the episode as a final closing moment. That was almost like a throwaway, but I was saying I'm so tired of Houston Strong being this thing where we rally all the time because ERCOT let us down, or CenterPoint let us down, or another natural disaster. I tweeted it out and it started trending. People were agreeing with me. Some people were not. And Houston tired has become a thing. I am just tired of this, right? Whether it be the winter storm, whether it be this past hurricane, the derecho, there's just been so much. And Laura, I'm tired. Like most Houstonians, I'm done being strong. Like, I don't want this anymore. It seems like no other city has this thing, right? Where we're just like, every year there's a hashtag Houston Strong. Let's rally around one more time because somebody let us down.
I am feeling tired, and I know a lot of my friends and family are feeling similar, and people who are, on the front lines of these natural disasters, the meteorologists, the reporters out in the field. We are tired. I mean, if we just look back at 2015, we had the Memorial Day flood. 2016, we had the Tax Day flood. 2017, we had Harvey. Then in 2019, there was a tropical storm, Imelda, that impacted a lot of people. Then we had the 2021 winter storm with Uri, and so many people suffered through that. And it was deadly. And then this year we've had back-to-back the derecho and now Beryl, and it is exhausting. Besides hashtag Houston Strong, I mean, we are strong and we do come together, but it just makes you think, like, what can we do to make living here more sustainable? What can we do as a community with our infrastructure to mitigate the disaster? Because just given the track record, it doesn't seem like the pace is going to slow down in the future. I mean, sad to say. So I don't know. I feel like we need a new hashtag. Like, not Houston Strong, not Houston Tired, though we are tired,
Houston's
but like
done. We're just done.
Houston, like Houston, Houston, Houston for change, Houston fed up,
Hashtag
something.
Please not Houston again.
Yeah.
No more hurricanes, hashtag. Yeah. No, I also was thinking about this. I think, with COVID and having all that time indoors, inside, like, I just think coming out of a pandemic, everyone's nerves were already frayed. Like, your mental health, like, there were so many mental health challenges during the pandemic. And I just know that my nerves were even fried coming out of that. And so I think having storm after storm and kind of once in a lifetime event after once in a lifetime event, you just get really tired. And there's only so much that a city can endure before they get to the hashtag Houston fed up. Like, we can only be strong for so long. And I do think we have to look at how to make our city more sustainable, because when you think about Houston, it's like there's so many things to love. Like, we have amazing people here. We have amazing community. We have a great food scene, all the different backgrounds and cultures that make up our city. And so it's like we don't want to get weary where people start leaving because of these things. And so I just think we as a city have to look at a way to be able to endure, because the storms are just going to continue, because we know climate change and is real and all this stuff is happening. So
yeah, I had a lot of people respond to my tweet saying, yeah, this is about it where we're moving. We're done. Like, we love Houston. We grew up here. This is a great place. We have fond memories, but we're tired of this, right? Like, other Texas cities don't go through this in terms of the magnitude and just how often this happens, right? Everything you just recounted, Laura, it's just frustrating. And yeah, Brooke, I'm hearing more people say like, all right, we're kind of good with this. We're done. You know what? Why are we putting ourselves through this? And for the first time ever, I was like, yeah, this is kind of getting bad. This is to the point where, why are we doing this, right? Because the infrastructure is not ready for these storms that are coming up. And it just seems like every small storm now, there's going to be outages or there's going to be issues. So that's what I think a lot of people are just frustrated with. And they're like, we're good. But one last tip I want to give out to the people: if you sustain damage, it's hard. It's already emotionally draining that your house is impacted, or your apartment, or your car. But if you are going to use somebody to help rebuild, use somebody that has a track record. So get references. I love asking on Nextdoor, on Facebook groups, on WhatsApp groups, on your neighborhood ring groups, if you are part of that, and get recommendations from neighbors who have used somebody, because there's going to be a lot of people coming to the city. And we've seen this before with Hurricane Harvey, where they're out of towners who will just say, yeah, we'll do this, take your money, and then not do it. So a lot of people have been impacted by that. So make sure you get the right references, get the right people working on your fences, houses, cars, whatever it may be, because you're already stressed out. And there are people, unfortunately, out there that will take advantage of this situation. So please be safe.
Yes, please be safe. Definitely hang in there. We're with you.
You hang in there as well. We're thinking about you. It's been a wild 6 weeks for you where you've lost power multiple times, Laura. And here's hoping that CenterPoint actually does what they've promised and they get you back online here soon. Brooke, thank you so much for taking some time out. And thank you for all the great work you've done on Hey Houston, providing so many resources.
Thanks for having me. And yes, hang in there, guys. We're just going to take it one day at a time and we'll get through it once again.
That was Hey Houston newsletter editor Brooke Lewis and Laura Isensee, our executive producer. If you found this episode helpful, please share it on social media or text it to your friends and family. And give us a review and a rating too. You can also share your recovery tips with us with the contact info in our show notes. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. So with that intro in mind, this is our chance to decompress, just talk. All right, so we'll do that. Here we go. Yes. 3, 2, 1.